Hello, my name is Garchompro, and I've been Challenger since Set 2. Now, one thing people really suck at in TFT is playing around their augments. People either take the wrong augment all the time, or when they take their augment, they play it incorrectly. Even top-level Challenger players make some of the mistakes I'm going to talk about today. So what I'm going to be covering in this video is the biggest augment mistakes I see people make. I'm going to start by talking about specific augments that people either take at incorrect times or play incorrectly, and then I'll go into general augment mistakes that people make. So first up, we have playing around Tome of Traits incorrectly. Now, I'm going to do a brief rundown on how Tome of Traits works. The traits you have on the Tome are neither fully set nor fully randomized. There's going to be a certain amount of traits that it offers that are going to be based off the traits you have on your sidebar, and a certain amount that are random. Of course, you get 4 possible emblems from the Tome of Traits. And so we see here that if you have 0 to 5 traits on your sidebar, you're going to have 0 tailored traits. If you have 6 to 7 traits on your sidebar, you're going to have 1 tailored trait. This means that the far left trait on your Tome of Traits is going to be randomly drawn from one of the traits on your sidebar, and the other 3 will be fully random. Of course, 8 to 9 traits active is going to be 2 are tailored, 10 to 11 is going to be 3 tailored, and 12 plus is going to be 4 tailored. So what I'd like to cover is a very quick example to demonstrate this. So looking at this screenshot of my game here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 traits active on my sidebar, which means that I'm going to be getting, if I were to get a Tome of Traits here, I would have 2 traits that are one of these 9, and 2 traits that are not. They could be one of these 9, but they're fully random. Even traits that can't be drawn from a tome count for this. So that's going to include the special 5-cost traits, threats, as well as supers, parallel, and quick draw. So those are great traits to play in order to bump up the amount you'll get active here. So of course we see here that all of these 9 can be drawn except for supers. So 2 of the traits are guaranteed to be 2 of the remaining 8. This means that Ezreal is a fantastic unit to play early game to bump up your trait threshold due to the fact that he gives you 3 traits, which makes it easy to hit the next threshold, but 2 of them, being Quick Draw and Parallel, can't be drawn from a tome. In addition, the way tome works is it will always draw from your traits that you played in the last round. So what you can't do is put in new traits and then pop your tome. You're going to have to wait a full round. This means that if you're taking tome at 2-1, don't pop it at 2-1. Play a board at 2-1 that'll either give you 6 or 8 traits, depending on what you want. That's like angling towards the traits you want, and then pop it on 2-2 to raise the odds of getting good traits that you want. The next mistake we have is Level Up. I think Level Up is a fantastic augment. I think if it's played correctly, it's low-key broken, but people really suck at playing this augment. If you look at its stats, it's one of the most taken augments in the game. It's the 4th most taken prismatic augment in the game, but its stats are not good. I mean, this is Masters Plus right here. 4.76, 4.41 is okay, and 4.62 is also not great. So why is this, and how do you play around Level Up correctly? The thing with Level Up is in order for Level Up to be good, you need to have money. What this means is that if it's at 3-2 or 4-2 and you don't have a good amount of money, don't take Level Up, right? If you're 30 gold at 3-2, don't take Level Up, that's not enough. If you're 40, 50 gold though, you can consider taking it at 3-2. Similar thing with 4-2, if you have a lot of money, you can consider taking this, but don't take it then. If you're taking Level Up at 2-1, however, the mistake I see a lot of people make is trying to play the game normally. When you have Level Up, you really have 2 options. The first one is if you really high roll your opener, you can start really aggressively pushing levels and force a win streak with it. Because of the fact that your leveling up is cheap, you should be able to go to level 5 really quickly and level 6 somewhere on stage 2 and then level 7 on 3-2. So you can really push those levels aggressively to try and win streak. I would only do this though if I know I have a really strong opener, as I am playing down a combat prismatic, so I need to have a strong opener in order to guarantee the fact that I can streak. Of course, this is also a stupid idea if there's like a Cruel Pact player in your lobby, as they'll probably always beat you. So make sure you're very cognizant of the lobby. And it's a little situational that you can actually win streak with this. If you're not win streaking, what you really need to do is you need to heavily prioritize econ and go on a 5-loss streak. You want to just sell everything and lose as many rounds as you can to get that loss streak gold and gain as much economy as possible. If you do this, you should be able to go level 8 on 3-5 with a considerable amount of gold to roll. And then you can roll down like 40 gold at 3-5 to stabilize level 8 while everyone else is level 6 or level 7. Stabilize then, you'll probably be like 30, 40 HP, but that's okay. You'll stabilize, and then you should be able to go level 9 on like 4-5. And then you can, roll down, hit some legendaries, And if you stabilize your board, you have the potential to go 10. And if you don't stabilize your board, you're level 9 with legendaries, so you should be able to top 4 from that position as well. So those are the two ways I typically would like to play level up. Again, the lose streak variant is actually a bit more consistent than the win streak variant. The thing is, if you try and push a win streak and then you don't 5 streak stage 2, you're probably going to bot 4 with this augment, so just keep that in mind. The next augment I see people make a lot of mistakes with is Golden Ticket. Now, Golden Ticket is an extremely powerful augment, but it needs to be played a specific way for it to be broken. The thing with Golden Ticket is, for one, you should only ever play it in a reroll comp. I'll see even challenger players take Golden Ticket and then go play a fast 8 comp. It really just doesn't make that much sense to play it in a fast 8 comp. What you really need to be using Golden Ticket for is to make 3 stars, right? If you take Golden Ticket, go play your fast 8 comp, and then you just hit a bunch of 2 stars that you would normally have anyways. Like, the rest of the lobby is going to have those 2 stars. So you're just down a combat prismatic, whereas the people with the combat prismatic still have those 2 stars. So you don't really have any advantage. You're just down a prismatic augment. What you need to be doing is playing some sort of reroll comp. 1, 2, 3 cost doesn't really matter. And when you're playing that reroll comp, you need to make sure you have at a minimum 3 3-stars with this augment. If you just have 1 3-star, again, people can hit 1 3-star easily on their own without an econ augment. So if you hit 1 3-star, you're just down an augment. If you hit 2, again, that's not that huge of a spike compared to other players. Now, once you can get to, let's say, 3, at least, you start to be in a decent position. Realistically, though, with Golden Ticket, you ideally want to try and 3-star as much of stuff as possible. So maybe if you're playing like a 3-cost reroll, you only go for like 3 3-stars. But if you're playing like a 1 or 2-cost reroll, you should be going for like 3 3-stars at the 1 or 2-cost range. And then when you go, to level 6, level 7, you should try and 3-star other stuff, potentially even like 4, 5, 6 3-stars with this augment. It's completely possible to have like 6 3-stars on your board with Golden Ticket due to the fact that it gives you literally double the amount of rolls in your shops. And if you can hit 6 3-stars, then your board is extremely strong. But if you're only sitting here with 1 3-star, you're just going to lose every fight. So when you're taking this augment, make sure that you, 1, have enough gold when you're taking this augment. If you take it without gold, again, it's bad. And 2, make sure you actually go for more than like 1 or 2 3-stars, as it's your prismatic, right? If you only have 1 3-star, other people are hitting that and they'll just be stronger than you. Next, we have high-end shopping. I think high-end shopping is a very, very strong augment. A lot of challenger players think it's very powerful. But if you look at its stats on Tactics.tools here, it has abysmal stats, right? 4.98, 4.72, you would not think this augment's very good. So what's the problem? The problem is that people are both taking it in the wrong spot and playing it incorrectly. People who take it without having a lot of econ will pretty much always go bot 4, right? If I'm 30 gold at 3-2, level 6, I am not taking this augment. I don't have enough money to actually buy the units, right? Because the thing with high-end shopping is what you want to play for is you want to play for the legendary 5-cost units. So you're going to want to try and 2-star your legendary 5 costs. My rule of thumb typically is if I have high-end shopping, I need at least 3 2-star 5 costs for my board to be strong. If I only have 1 or 2 2-star 5 costs, my board is usually pretty weak. Because again, you're down a combat prismatic. So if you're only like 30 gold at 3-2, you're literally not going to have enough money to buy the units. So usually if I'm like 50 gold at 3-2, I'm down to take this. If I'm like 40, 50 gold level 8 at 4-2, I'm down to take this augment. So for one, make sure you take it when you have enough money. The other mistake I'll see people take is they'll take this at 3-2, and then they'll roll down at level 7. Okay, so you're going to take this augment and then roll down at level 7. Realistically, you can't reliably hit 2-star 5 costs at level 7 with high-end shopping, right? Because you're not normally hitting 2-star 5 costs at level 8. You need to be level 9 for that. So when you take high-end shopping and roll down level 7, what you're rolling for is 2-star 4 costs, but other people in your lobby are going to roll down at 4-2 at level 8 and hit 2-star 4 costs there anyways. So again, you're just down a combat prismatic, right? You're going to hit your 2-star 4 costs, and because you're in a prismatic lobby, it's not even that strong to have a 2-star 4 cost because you don't have a combat prismatic. Now, it is strong to hit 2-star 5 costs, right? If your board has like Fiddlesticks 2, Urgot 2, Janna 2, Mord 2, that type of stuff on it, it doesn't matter that you're down a combat prismatic if you have like 3+ of those 2-starred. But yeah, I'll see people also take this in boards where they can't fit in multiple legendaries. If you're playing a board that has like 6 or 7 of your slots locked in and you really only have 1 or 2 slots to flex, again, you shouldn't be taking this augment due to the fact that you just don't have enough room to play the 5 costs. So keep those in mind when you're taking high-end shopping. Next augment I see people misplay a lot is Clear Mind. In my opinion, Clear Mind is one of the best gold augments in the game. I think this augment is extremely, extremely powerful. And now the biggest mistake I see people take with this augment is they will try and play their strongest board every round. Now, I'm not saying you should purposely make your board weak, but if it makes your board slightly weaker to play pairs instead of your strongest variant of your board, you should do that. And here's the reasoning why. Let's say I play only 1-star units, and they have good synergy together, but I only play 1-star units. I'm still going to have a weak board in stage 2, stage 3. I'm never going to be strong. I'm going to be losing most of my rounds. I might save a little bit of HP, but I'm generally not going to be that strong, which is not ideal. But if I, hold pairs on my board with this, and I'm playing like 2 Renekton's, 2 Ashes or something, I have the potential now to actually hit those 2 stars. And if I hit those 2 stars, I can actually be strong, right? If I have 2 stars, I can potentially save HP. I can even potentially win streak. If you're playing Clear Mind from a win streak, you basically already won the game. You get to go 9 for free. And if you're saving HP with Clear Mind, it's also really strong. Because when you're playing this augment, what you really want to do is just econ as much as possible. Go level 8, roll down 50 gold at level 8. And then once you hit a stable enough board, sell off your extra units and go 9. That's the ideal situation. Of course, if you don't have that much HP at level 8, it's a bit more risky to sell off stuff to go level 9, especially due to the fact that you're down a combat augment. But if you hold pairs and potentially hit pairs, you can potentially save the HP. So make sure you are playing your pairs when you have Clear Mind, because it gives you much more potential to actually have a strong board. Basically, I'll weaken my board a little. I'll have a little bit less of a guarantee of strength for the potential to high roll a stronger board. And in my opinion, that's just the correct way to play this augment. All right, next we have Hustler. This one's relatively quick. The thing with Hustler is you should be playing this as a tempo fast 8 augment. I'll see people take Hustler and they'll try and play reroll. 1 or 2 cost reroll, I don't think it makes that much sense to play Hustler off of. Those comps really want to get to 50 gold and have as much econ as possible to hit everything. Hustler doesn't allow you to just sack up to 50 gold because you're essentially capped at getting 30 gold of interest around. So it's really not ideal for those comps. What you want to be using Hustler for is pushing levels as aggressively as possible. You should be going level 6 somewhere at like 2.6. You should be going level 7 like at 3.2. Then once I go level 7, I'll sometimes roll a little bit at level 7, because again, you can just donkey roll as much as you want with this augment. So I'll roll a bit at level 7 to stabilize, and then I'll go level 8. From there, get my board, and then potentially go level 9. So you really should be pushing levels with this augment instead of playing reroll. 3 cost reroll may be like somewhat acceptable if you're high rolling a bunch, because like I said, you go level 7 and you roll a bit at level 7. So maybe if I like go level 7 and hit like 5 Kaisas or something like that, I'm down to reroll for Kaisa 3. But otherwise, you should be steering away from reroll if you take Hustler. All right, next we have Ascension. The thing with Ascension is I'll see people take this augment when it's not good on their board. They'll either take it in comps such as Duelist, which just the fights don't last very long. Ascension is very good in comps where the fights last long, like Brawlers. And then they'll also take it when they don't have defensive items. If I don't have a defensive item, I will never even remotely consider this augment at all. Now, if I'm sitting here with like a Warmog Stoneplate or something like that, this is maybe higher on my priority list due to the fact that I can actually force the fight to last longer. So this augment is fantastic when you're playing a bulky comp like Brawlers, or you have a bunch of defensive items. If you have a bunch of offensive items, you should never like even consider taking this augment, unless it's like specifically Brawlers. So the next mistake I see people making is less of a mistake and more so people not fully optimizing something. The Jeweled Lotus augment is one of the best augments in the game. It's like the most taken augment in Masters Plus, I believe, and has still like a 4.2, 4.3 average, something like that. It's a fantastic augment, and you should be taking it a large portion of the time. When you have this augment, however, though, you should slightly shift your item prioritization. Specifically, Hand of Justice, Guardbreaker, Thieves' Gloves, Quicksilver, and Last Whisper are great items to be putting on carries, and they actually give bonus crit chance. Well, when your abilities can critically strike, getting more crit chance is significantly more useful than if your abilities can't critically strike. So what happens is when you have Jeweled Lotus, items like Hand of Justice and Guardbreaker end up going from decent items on units to a lot of times being best in slot on them. So make sure you're prioritizing these items whenever you have Jeweled Lotus. This also works if you have Jeweled Gauntlet or Infinity Edge. These items go up a lot in value. For instance, Hand of Justice, I don't like it that much on AP carries, but if I have a Jeweled Gauntlet or Jeweled Lotus, I usually think it's best in slot on those units. So keep that in mind. The next one we're going to have here is taking late game augments in the early game. Now, my 2 examples I have here are Axiom Arc and Celestial Blessing. These augments are not good at 2-1. These are actually great augments. Axiom Arc is fantastic in Misfortune. It's also great in some other comps, such as Lucian or Lulu. Axiom Arc is very powerful. Celestial Blessing is actually a pretty good augment. It's a good flexible augment that goes into a lot of comps. It's great in certain things like Samira or Belveth. So both of these are good augments. I would not call them bad. But at 2-1, their relative power is just not very high. They just don't do enough. Celestial Blessing, when you don't have a 3-item carry, Celestial Blessing just isn't healing enough. And again with Axiom Arc, when you don't have a 3-item carry, they're just not securing kills quick enough to actually proc this augment. These aren't the only ones that are good in the late game but bad in the early game. You can simply just go to Tactics.tools here and look at the augments, and you can kind of tell by looking at the 2-1, 3-2, 4-2 whether the augment's good early game or not. Let's look at Axiom Mark here. At 4-2 it has an average of 4.37, which is pretty good. But at 2-1 it has an average of 4.7, so you should probably be steering away from this at 2-1. Again, Celestial Blessing 2 here. 4.47 at 4-2, that's pretty solid, but 4.61 at 2-1, that's a little less than ideal. So keep those in mind. It also goes the other way. Some augments are great to take at 2-1 and bad to take at 4-2. For instance, Item Grab Bag 1 here is awful at 4-2, but quite good at 2-1. This makes sense here due to the fact that early game, you don't have many items, so the percent of your items that it's increasing is much more than late game, right? If I already have 5 items, getting 1 extra item is not as impactful as if I have 1 item and I get 1 extra item. So it kind of goes both ways. There's also augments that are bad late game but good early game, and augments that are good late game but bad early game. So just make sure you're taking the augments when it makes sense to. Don't take them at the wrong time. All right, so now we're going to be getting into some general mistakes I see people make that aren't about specific augments. The first one here is going to be not using Tactics.tools or a similar site such as Meta.tft. So why should you be using Tactics.tools? The thing is, we as humans aren't going to be able to have perfect information. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you don't know how every augment in the game works, right? Let's be real. There's so many different hero augments here and general augments. What's the likelihood that you've played a game or even watched a game of every single one of these? There's so many of them, right? It's extremely unlikely that you've played all of them. Or even if you have, you've maybe played it from an insane condition, and so you kind of want to get a more general idea for how it works. What you can do is go to Tactics.tools and look at the stats on augments to get a general idea of how they're performing. This can also give you a good idea of how the meta is, right? So for instance, Aim Assist has great stats across the board. This is indicative of the meta due to the fact that LeBlanc is very, very good. Let's say I'm thinking of taking, stacks on stacks. Okay, maybe I should steer away from this because it does not have a very good average right now. So the idea of stats is that they can give you information that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have due to the fact that you won't know everything. Obviously, if you have a personal opinion that goes away from these stats and you think it's good to take an augment in a certain situation, feel free to, right? The other day, I played a game of Triumphant Return. This has a 5.11 average, but my setup was really good for it, right? I had Ronduin Sanctum, which meant that Triumphant Return plus Ronduin Sanctum, really, really good combo. So it was a good take for me. But if I didn't know that I had a good setup, I should probably steer away from it if it has a bad average placement. And of course, if it has a good average placement, you know that if you have a setup for it, it would make sense, right? Like, let's say I'm sitting here with a Pantheon pair, and I'm thinking, should I take Chronic Hallucinations? Is this even good? Well, the stats say it's pretty good, so there's a good chance that it's going to be solid. Of course, the stats aren't going to be the end-all be-all. Overusing Tactics.tools can also be a giant issue. What you shouldn't be doing is looking at the stats and getting 3 augments and saying, hey, I'm going to pick the one that has the best stats here, right? Let's say you get offered Jeweled Lotus, Portable Forge, and Thrill the Hunt, maybe, because these are just common augments to have. What you shouldn't be doing is just looking at the stats and saying, oh, I'm going to pick the one that has the best stats at my point. Because let's say I'm sitting here with Infinity Edge on my carry, but no healing. Well, Thrill the Hunt's going to be better in that situation than Jeweled Lotus, even though Jeweled Lotus has a better average. So you shouldn't just be looking at the stats and using the stats to make your decision. Stats should inform your decision, not make them. In addition, you can try and get even better information with your stats with the Explorer tool, which I may talk more about how I like to use this tool in a later point in time. This Explorer tool is really great. You can look at certain conditions, right, to get an idea of how good something is. So let's say I'm playing, Misfortune 2, and I want to see how good Axiom Arc is. Okay, Misfortune 2 has an average of 3.8, but if I throw in Axiom Arc, my average goes to 3.64. So this seems very good with Misfortune. Okay, let's say I'm playing something else. Let's say maybe I'm playing like Twisted Fate, 2-star carry. And I want to see, okay, how does Twisted Fate do with Axiom Arc? Because I don't know how this does. Okay, my average goes down. So maybe Axiom Arc isn't good with Twisted Fate. So what you should really be doing is using this Explorer tool here to try and inform your decisions better, as well as using the raw stats from the augments to give you information that you wouldn't otherwise know, but don't rely just on it. Take the decision that makes sense, right? You should always be picking the augment that goes well with your board. It's better to take a 4.8 augment that goes well with your board than a 4.2 augment that doesn't go well with your board, right? That's the idea. So just make sure what you're doing makes sense. Again, the stats are very useful, but only as additional information. They should never fully make your decision. The next mistake I see people make is not playing around their pairs at 2-1 when they have a hero augment. If you have pairs for the 2-1 hero augment, or single units, you should be trying to take a unit that matches those. Or you have a 2-star, maybe you take a hero augment that goes around with that. What you shouldn't be doing is just taking the highest average hero augment at 2-1, right? Because the problem is if your board is not set up for it, it's not going to be powerful. Whereas if you can take a hero augment that gives you a 2-star at 2-1, because you have a pair already, that's going to give you a lot of immediate board strength, which can potentially just snowball into a top 4. So don't just take the strongest hero augment, take the hero augment that goes along with the units you have, whether that be makes a 2-star or goes well with your other 2-stars, right? Maybe if I have like a 2-star Lucian, I'll take Chronic Hallucinations, which is the Pantheon augment, because that goes well with Lucian for like an Infinity opener. Or maybe if I have like a Lucian pair, I'll take one of the Lucian augments to give me a Lucian 2. Just in general, it's a good idea to play around your pairs at 2-1 for hero augments, simply due to the fact that it'll give you a lot more board strength immediately. This also works around non-hero augments as well, right? Like let's say I'm offered a trait +1, like I'm offered Infiniteme +1, but I don't have any Infiniteme units. Even though Infiniteme +1 has really good stats, it's like a 3.7 average at 2-1. If I don't have any Infiniteme units, it's not going to be that great at 2-1. Whereas again, if I have like a Lucian pair and a Pantheon pair, then Infiniteme +1 is going to be really good because I can probably easily hit a Lucian 2, Pantheon 2 and be strong there. So just make sure the pairs you have are informing your decisions at 2-1, especially around hero augments. Alright, so the next 2 mistakes I see people make, I'm going to combine them because they kind of go hand in hand, is not tailoring their hero augment and not knowing what to roll for based off of what they have tailored. So here's how tailoring your hero augment works. At 2-1, the hero augments are completely random, you can't control them at all. But at 3-2 and 4-2, they are a controlled random. What the game is going to do is look at the boards you played on 3-1 and 4-1 respectively, and tailor the units to match along with your active traits. And by active traits, I mean traits that are like actually active, so if you have like 1 out of 3 laser core, that's not going to count. What it's going to do is if you have 1 active trait, 1 of the 3 slots will be tailored. If you have 2 active traits, 2 of the 3 slots will be tailored. And if you have 3 or more active traits, all 3 slots will be tailored. The tailored slots will only pull units from your active traits you played on the previous round. So for instance, if you have Brawler in, you can potentially see a Brawler unit as one of those slots. In addition to that, you can also see a threat unit. 1 threat unit per slot that's tailored. But if you have threat active, if you have 1 threat active, you can see 2 per slot. If you have 2 threat active, you can see 3 per slot. Essentially, you can always see the amount of threats you have active plus 1 per slot, which means that in general, you have 4 guaranteed units plus a potential threat unit. But you're not even guaranteed to see a threat unit. You could see 5 of your active traits per slot. And those active slots will only pull from your active traits unless you have ran out of units for your active traits. So let's do a quick example here. So looking at my board here, I have 4 Heart, 2 Spellslinger, 2 Brawler, and 2 Admin active, which means that all 3 of my slots on the next augment, which is a hero augment, are going to be tailored. What this means is that I can see Heart units on my tailored slots, I can see Spellslingers, Brawlers, or Admins. So if we skip ahead a little here, we can look at my hero augments. So it's a 2-3-2, so we know that the first slot's always going to be a 2 cost, second slot's always going to be a 3 cost, and last slot's going to be a 2 cost. Now on 2-3-2, I really like to play around 3 costs, so we're just going to focus on the 3 cost slot here and see what's going to happen. So what we need to do is think about what we can hit. Okay, we have Heart. Heart can give us Sona at 3 cost. Spellslinger. Spellslinger can give us LeBlanc or Sona at 3 cost. Brawler. Brawler can give us Jax or Riven at 3 cost. And Admin. Admin can give us LeBlanc at 3 cost. So we can see LeBlanc, Sona, Jax, or Riven. So that's 2 augments for each of them, so 8 possible augments, plus a potential threat augment. So there's 9 possible augments we can see in this middle slot, with a total of 5 rolls. So if we want a specific augment, we have a 5 in 9 chance of hitting it effectively. So thinking of my board here, I want to play around Hearts. I have a LeBlanc pair, so I really want a LeBlanc augment, potentially a Sona augment. So when you click this reroll button here, what you need to make sure is you know what you're rolling for. Personally here, I am rolling ideally for a LeBlanc augment, because I can hit it. If I couldn't hit a LeBlanc augment, it would be stupid to roll for it. But then potentially a Sona augment as well. Sona wouldn't be bad. Although I prefer LeBlanc because I don't have LeBlanc paired. So I'm going to reroll past the Reverberation, doesn't make much sense. I'm going to reroll past here this Gas Giant Slayer. Again, I'm looking for Sona or LeBlanc. Out of these, I have a high chance of hitting one. Okay, now I hit Power Grid here. Now this is where an interesting decision comes in, because I have the potential to roll past Power Grid here, even though Power Grid is probably the 3rd best augment I can hit. Again, I would probably prefer one of the LeBlanc augments, but Power Grid is probably the 3rd best augment I can hit here. I could start playing around Sona pair, maybe roll down for a Sona 2. I do end up deciding to roll past this, however, as I decided that I had a decent amount of odds to hit a LeBlanc augment at this point. Remember here, we've seen the Riven augment, we've seen the Threat augment, and we've seen the first Sona augment. So there is still 6 augments we can hit in these next 2 rolls. 2 of those are LeBlanc augments. So my next roll, I have a 1 in 3 chance of seeing a LeBlanc augment. And then if I miss there, I would have a 2 in 5 chance after that. So I do have a solid odds at hitting a LeBlanc augment here. And I actually do decide to risk it to reroll. So again here, this is very risky to roll again. Undercurrent's not a bad augment here at all. It's probably the 4th best of all the augments because again, the Jax and Riven augments are not good. So I actually do end up taking a huge risk here. I can see either Jax augment or the Riven support augment or the LeBlanc augment, which means I have 2 in 5 chance of getting LeBlanc augment next roll. And so I actually do end up re-rolling this and I get lucky and hit the LeBlanc augment. But doing all these rerolls only makes sense if I knew what I was tailoring for, right? Let's say I didn't have Spellslinger active. Then rolling for LeBlanc would be stupid because I wouldn't be able to hit LeBlanc, right? I didn't have Spellslinger and Admin active, then I wouldn't be able to hit LeBlanc, and I should just settle for the Sona augment. So whenever you're rerolling your augment, make sure you're looking at your active traits, knowing what units you can hit, and you usually want to go for either the best or the second best augment for what you can hit, because you can kind of exhaust all possible options if you just look through your traits, and you can know exactly what you can hit and take it. Because sometimes you'll be forced to take something that's not ideal, but like you're not tailored for something better, so you just have to. Now, here is what I could have actually done a bit better this game. At 3-1, I'm playing this board here. Now, this is my strongest board at this point in time, so this is why I play this board, because I'm on a win streak and I want to keep my win streak. But if I wasn't on a win streak, what would be ideal here is actually to change my board and make it slightly weaker. We could actually manipulate the board slightly here, making it marginally weaker in a way that would actually guarantee we hit a LeBlanc augment. So I'll give you 1 second to think about what you could do to this board to guarantee we hit a LeBlanc augment next round. Alright, so what we could easily do here is take out this Lee Sin and put in another unit. Obviously, we'd lose Brawler and 4 Heart, which is going to make me weaker. But what this is going to mean is that now I don't have Brawler active, which means my tailored augment isn't going to be either a Jax or a Riven, right? I can't hit those Brawlers, and I still have 3 traits active. If I take out Lee Sin, I'd still have Admin, Spellslinger, Heart, meaning the only 3 costs I can roll are Sona and LeBlanc, or again a threat. Well, I have 5 rolls, I just named 5 augments. So of those 5 rolls, I would actually be guaranteed to hit specifically whichever of the Sona or LeBlanc augments I want. So I could actually fully guarantee the fact that I would get aim assist in that position. So that is important to keep in mind, is that sometimes you want to make your board slightly weaker at 3-1 or 4-1 in order to tailor the augment for your needs. For instance, if you're trying to play around Samira, a lot of times you're not playing sure shots in the mid game, but you may want to put in like 2 sure shot at 4-1. That way you have a higher potential of hitting a Samira augment. Whereas if you don't put in the sure shot and just play your strongest board, you may get screwed over by hero augment because you won't actually be able to take what you want. So this is just one example of tailoring your augment, but make sure that you are aware of your traits at 3-1, 4-1. Make sure you have the traits that you want active, so that way you have potential to hit the good augments for your comp, because you should know what augments are good for your comp. And then when you're rolling, make sure you roll for something that is explicitly better than what you've seen. Right? If you've already seen the best or the second best augment, it's probably not worth rolling more. But if you can see something better that you have potential to hit, it is usually worth it to roll for that. Now the final and probably biggest mistake I see people make is taking double econ augments. Now this is a mistake that I see even high-level challenger players make relatively frequently. And I think it's because people like to be greedy, but this really just never works out. Okay, the problem with taking double econ augments is that you are down 2 combat augments, which makes it very, very hard for you to make that back up in terms of board strength, right? I think econ augments are great. I love taking econ augments. They allow you to get to a strong board pretty consistently and win a lot of fights. The problem with double econ augments, though, is your board has to be so much better than the rest of your lobby in order to win fights, because they will have 2 combat augments and you will not. And it's really just hard to make up that deficit if you're taking double econ augments. Now, there are a couple exceptions to this rule, specifically when the econ augments help each other, right? Because for instance, let's say I take Trade Sector and Rich Get Richer. These augments really aren't benefiting each other at all. Like, they're not making each other better. And in fact, once you have more money from one augment, taking another econ augment is going to have less an effect, right? Because when you have more money, a flat increase in gold is going to be a less % increase. By econ augments here, I'm going to be referencing anything that doesn't give you combat power. So stuff like Rich Get Richer, Trade Sector, Windfall, Level Up. Those are like pure econ augments. And then stuff like Tiny Titans, Metabolic Accelerator, although it's not really like a quote unquote econ augment, they're not really giving you gold. They don't give you combat power. So I'm considering them as econ augments in this position. So don't take stuff like Metabolic Accelerator into Rich Get Richer. You're just not going to have any board strength. You should really have at least 2 combat augments of your 3. Now there's a couple exceptions to this rule. Specifically, I think Birthday Present into a econ augment is going to be good. This is due to the fact that if you have Birthday Present, you really want to be pushing levels aggressively, getting those free units. So if you get Birthday Present, then an augment that gives you gold, like Rich Get Richer or Windfall, it's very powerful. Again, if you have an augment that gives you gold and then level up, that's very good as well. You should be able to just push fast 10 really easily. You're going to be like up 2 units on everyone. You're going to have a bunch of 5 costs and you can just win the game that way. And then Golden Ticket plus Wise Spending is also just a really broken combo. It's pretty rare to hit. But if you manage to hit the Golden Ticket Wise Spending combo, it's very, very good. The Wise Spending and Golden Ticket like synergize perfectly together. So it's just really, really strong. Of course, there will be some situations where you are forced to take double econ augment and it's your best position. But honestly, if you're taking double econ augment, you're probably just playing for top 4. It's really far from ideal. You should be steering away from it as much as possible. In general, with all the advice I gave in this video, there are some situations where it's correct to go against my advice. But as a general rule, 99% of the time, I think what I said in this video will be true. So you should generally be following what I've said. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment for any potential video suggestions in the future, and make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed it and want to see more. And thank you for watching.